red line. I didn't touch it in first gear. Holy crap. It's a fast bike. God, it just darts over from side to side so beautifully. I mean, it's kind of like how Ferris Bueller said, if you have the means, I highly recommend it. Jesus. Let's go, baby. Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another very special episode of Yammy Noob. Today we are doing our first riding impression on our giveaway. That's right, this thing, giveaway, Ducati Streetfighter V4S. Woo! Boys, I am excited about this one. There's a lot of reasons I'm excited about it. Today's video is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very long, I think. There's a lot to say about this machine. It is complicated, it is fast, it's amazing, and spoiler alert, I think this is the very best naked bike on sale in the entire motorcycling market today. Yep, I'm going to say it right in the beginning of the video. You're going to find out why later, but first I got to tell you that this is a giveaway motorcycle. You got to know that we're doing big things over here at Yammy Noob. We've moved into a new facility. We're buying $25,000 Italian naked bikes to give away. If you want to get entered for a chance to win this motorcycle, hit up shop.yammynoob.co. Use the code V4S. You'll get yourself 4X entries on any purchase you make until, I think it's Monday at midnight, 3 days after the launch on Friday. We'll have a nice kind of copy on the website so you can learn more about that. But the code V4S gets you 4X entries. And I wanted to shout out that we got our new distributor on there, 4SR. We got some new gear on there. I'm actually wearing their Sport Cup glove. This thing's really nice. It's a nice upgrade over my little short cuff Tai Chis that I wore. I'm now wearing something with a little bit more protection for the street. This isn't a track glove necessarily, but 4SR makes some really high quality stuff. Josh and I visited their facility out in Houston for their US distributor, and we're now vendors for them on the store. So check out shop.yammynoob.co, all the new 4SR stuff, and use the code V4S to get entered to win this badass machine. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, folks, Ducati Streetfighter V4S. Before we jump on and kind of go for our ride, let's cover the baseline here. So this is basically a naked Panigale V4. You'll notice it has the same stressed member frame here. This is a really trick kind of like dangling frame thing that they do here. Basically a Panigale. They didn't do a whole lot to make it for the Streetfighter. There's a couple changes here and there, some gearing changes. It's obviously the flat handlebars and all that. But the one feature I think that's really cool about this bike is that the headlight is indeed attached to the forks. So when you move it around, you'll see the headlight actually moves as well too. I think this bike very neatly categorizes itself as a naked bike. And a lot of you thought the Tuono V4 was not a naked bike. But I think this, I mean, you can see the entire engine. There's no fairing here. There's a naked bike to me. Nice little winglets here as well. And yeah, definitely a naked bike. So what are we working with? Got Ducati's 1103cc V4 putting out 208 horsepower at 12,500-ish RPM and 90 foot-pounds of torque thereabouts as well. It redlines at an eye-watering 14,500 RPM. You can barely get this thing to redline on the street. Maybe first and second gear. Beyond that, you're a lunatic. You're going to go to jail speeds very quickly. But man, there's just so much to say about this bike. I mean, it's laden with technology. There's so many features. There's so much to say about the riding experience. I've been riding around here for about an hour, and I've done a lot of research on it. I'm very ready to give you guys my thoughts. Really cool thing about this bike, really quick, actual key. I like that. I don't like the keyless ignition stuff. I like that it has an actual key. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump on the bike, talk you through ergonomics, touch points, do some slow speed stuff. We're going to get it out on the twisties here, kind of initial impressions in street mode, get it out on some tighter twisties, try to feel it out a little bit, get it on the highway, get some impressions on it. It's going to be a long, detailed video, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, swinging a leg over the Ducati. 33.2-inch seat height, something like that. It's a pretty tall seat. I'm about 5'11", and I've got a bend in my legs. I can flap with this thing very comfortably. I think if you were under 5'6" or so, you might struggle a little bit with this bike. but it's actually pretty comfortable in the way that it sits. Being that it is a V4 layout, here and here are the cylinders, it's pretty narrow around the gas tank, so you're not really straddling this thing really nice and wide. It feels very svelte, very small, about a 440-pound curb weight on this thing. We'll go ahead and put it into neutral and fire it up. To keep my foot on the rear brake lest I roll back. So this motor, really cool thing about it is it's a very unique firing order derived from MotoGP programs that Ducati runs. It has a backwards rotating crank, this firing order that makes it sound basically like a twin at idle. And we're going to talk a lot about the engine's characteristic because it really dominates this riding experience. And I just, really quick, I don't know how Ducati gets away with this for their exhaust sounds. I don't know how this passes regulation. Take a listen to this. Oh my god, that's such a good exhaust note. But you'll notice that the lower revs sounds a lot like a twin, but then you zing it up, you start feeling that V4 character, but the V4 character is locked away at frickin' 14,000 RPM. It's insane. It's absolutely bonkers. Alright, enough jibber jabber. Let's start riding the thing, shall we? We'll do some slow speeds here in this parking lot so you guys get a feel for what it's like. And I will say, lock to lock, not very generous on this motorcycle. It's better than the 210, but maybe only by like 3 or 4 degrees. I find the ergonomics to be very agreeable. We're going to talk a lot about this motorcycle's throttle feel because it's so good and important on this bike. But doing slow speed stuff in a parking lot feels very natural with this thing. You'll notice that if I let the clutch out, the thing starts to lug a little bit. It's a big engine and it needs to be revved up a little bit when you're actually getting it out and going. But the throttle feel low down, they've done it in such a way in that it's like so friendly that it almost becomes a bit of a detriment because it actually, you have to really give it some gas and really like, it doesn't, I'll show you guys here. When you input a little bit, you see that I'm actually cracking open the throttle and it's not doing anything. And this is in sport mode, so it's right about there that it starts doing something. So when you're leaping away a stop or something and you're doing the slow speed stuff, you got to add a little bit more gas than you normally would on a bike. You get used to it pretty quickly, but I mean, these guys had to do so much wizardry to get this giant 1103cc V4 to play polite in these slow speed conditions. But you know, whipping it around a parking lot, 440-pound curb weight, the only thing that's a detriment is that throttle feel is a little not so great. It just, at slow speeds, it's a little bit of a hindrance, but the payoff is on the road, it is sublime. So let's go ahead and get it out on the road. Ergonomically speaking, it's pretty comfortable. These handlebars are actually in a pretty good position for me. It's sporty, but not too aggressive. Up and down quick shifter, of course, as we'll go through here. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear. Really lovely quick shifter system on this bike. You go here, on the brakes, down 2 gears. Really nice and composed. I love Ducati's quick shifter system. The auto blip down is just about perfect. And what's really neat is that it actually behaves a little differently in different modes. So this bike has, I think it's rain mode, street mode, sport mode, and race mode. I think there's 4 modes. It might just be street, sport, and race. I can't remember exactly, and I can't access it while I'm rolling. But there's a lot of menu diving you can do on this bike, and it starts to kind of make your brain a little hazy. It's not a simple motorcycle. I want you guys to know that. That is a bit of a detriment of it. But to get a bike that makes this much power, this refined, and this much fun to ride, you gotta have some sacrifices in the technology department. You're gonna have a lot of systems at play on this machine, keeping you in check. So going through our control inputs here, we've talked a little bit about the throttle. Let's talk more about it. It's the defining feature on this motorcycle. Unlike the 210 V4 and a lot of other naked bikes, this bike does not have a grip it and rip it crazy mid-low range power that's just gonna rock it off. The 210 wanted to absolutely rip your head off at any given moment. This bike has a very docile nature to it, under about 6,000 RPM. In any mode, street mode especially, but sport mode, it's very docile. this is a screamer of an engine. This is a grower, not a shower, if you know what I mean. You got to rev this thing out to get the performance. And what's really great is that if you're just bopping around town like this, you can just be in third gear, low RPM. It rumbles away like a velvety smooth twin. This bike does not have a lot in the way of nasty vibrations. It actually is very, very butter smooth. The control inputs are not vibrational at all. I'm not noticing anything in the mirrors at any rev range that I've seen so far. It's actually really nice. However, if you want to flick the wick on this thing, my God, it's got power. Holy guacamole, this thing rips. Let's try to see if we get a little bit of an opening here, get it in second gear. And then when you ask for throttle, it gives it to you. I mean, even low down, when I said it's docile, it will rip off the whatever rev you're in. Let's see if we got a little bit of clearance. There's a truck up there, a little bit of gas. Jesus. I mean, you can't do that anywhere, dude. You really can't do that anywhere. It's really pushing it, even in first and second gear, to get this thing to its actual spicy red line. You can't do it anywhere. But that's the nature of these hyper naked bikes, and Ducati's found a great compromise in that they're like, okay, you know, you can't really use the thing anywhere. You can access, you know, like 15% of its performance at any given notice on the street. There's that throttle response again. There we go. You got to give it a little more juice than you think. So Ducati says, okay, so if you can't, you know, let's think about our customer base and what they're really going to do with this bike. And a lot of guys, if we're going to be totally honest, you know, I'm going to take this thing out on track and absolutely rail it. I can't wait. I'm actually going this weekend with it because I just can't wait. But a lot of guys are going to buy this and they're going to do a lot of this stuff. You know, they're going to take it to the coffee shop. They want to park it. They want to keep it pretty and clean. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want you guys to know that there's nothing wrong if you have the means to buy something like this and enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. I would never tell somebody like, oh, you didn't take it to the track and rail it around. That's so sad. I do that with super sports because they're designed to do that. This bike isn't, of course it is designed to rip up a racetrack. It'll happily do that. But the execution here, while you're riding it around town, you notice that Ducati thought of the street first and then racetrack stuff. The racetrack technology has helped turn this motorcycle into what I think is the #1 pick for the naked bikes in today's market. We'll flick it through these set of corners here, keep it in second gear. Stay on the gas here. Golly, this thing's, oh my God, dude. I need to get this thing on track. Need to. As I just said, it was a great street bike. I'm obsessed with getting this thing on track. The way that it handles is just sublime, man. This thing is featured, obviously, with the electronically adjustable Öhlins. It's for damping only, so if you need to sort out your preload, you do have to do that with the spanner. It's not fully electronic, as far as I understand. But Ducati has a really cool sub-menu in this motorcycle that allows you to dial in the suspension settings based on more intuitive suspension ideas. What do I mean by that? I mean that you can actually go in the sub-menu and see like, oh, like I'm getting too much brake dive, and then you just dial out the brake dive, as opposed to just seeing some cryptic acronym and then, you know, trying to increase or decrease the cryptic acronym that is in the sub-menu of this motorcycle. Now, you can make the case, it's like, well, you know, that's why a traditional mechanical suspension is better. You can just click it in, you're done. But I really think that the dynamic nature of an electronically adjustable suspension is superior to most applications. This is the third bike that I've owned as a giveaway bike for that has this electronically adjustable Öhlins system. I believe this is the EC 2.0. I've had 3 sets of those now, in the Fireblade, the Speed Triple 1200 RR, and this one right here. The 210 did not have, no, the 210 had it too. Yeah, so I've had 4 bikes with the electronically adjustable everything else. I think these systems are superior. I don't want to admit it, but they are. Like, they're just so set it and forget it. And if you want more comfort, you can dial out the comfort. Or you dial in the comfort. If you want a more sporting suspension, you can just set it up and dial it in. You don't have to bust out the hex keys and the spanner and dial things in. it's really nice. It's a more flexible suspension setup for this motorcycle, and it's all the better for it. We'll wipe you guys off here. I think we just ran through a sprinkler. Let's make sure you're okay there, folks. So yeah, it is superior in my opinion. The bikes I've taken on track that have that setup are just, you just put them in track mode and you're done, basically. And I ride at a novice club racer level pace, which is not slow. It's not ultra fast. I'm not absolutely pushing the limits of these bikes, but by no means a slow pace on these bikes. Feels great. You don't have to really think about it. Going through the other control points here. Clutch feel, phenomenal. It's a hydraulically actuated clutch. You can see here in the tiny little pee bottle that we have here in the left-hand side of the bike. So obviously it goes through a line, pushes the master cylinder pushes the slave cylinder, blah, blah, blah. Feels good. I do still think that they're an unnecessary complexity, excuse me. I wouldn't really care if this bike had a cable throttle or a cable clutch. Wow, my words today, not doing the best. I got the best words, folks. The peg height is very approachable. You're not super sky high on the pegs here. You're able to enjoy this bike around town, I think, with the peg height the way it is. It's not super aggressive. One thing I did want to mention is the heat. Look, y'all saw the gigantic radiator this bike has on the front of it. You're cooling down 1103 cc's, big motor. It's pushing 208 horsepower. It's probably got a 13.5 to 1 compression ratio. When you make a lot of horsepower, you make a lot of heat. There's no two ways about it. Ducati's done a commendable job in controlling the heat. It is better than previous Ducatis, the 1098 for example, and from what I understand, the Streetfighter 1098, which this bike is a direct descendant of. But you still get heat. It's still a Panigale, basically. It's still a Ducati. It's still hot, but it is a lot better than it used to be. They're finally not routing the exhaust right under your butt like they used to back in the day. The exhaust pipes are going down, and they actually have a system where you get cylinder deactivation when you're just sitting at idle at a stoplight, which you probably wouldn't even notice because it sounds like a big twin at idle anyways, which is a lot of fun. But boy, guys, I'm sorry. I thought this road would have not as much traffic and we'd be able to rip it back there a little bit. We'll do a quick turnaround just to get you guys some action, and then we'll continue on our route here. Got some highway to do and some other stuff, but let's flip around and see if we can chuck it down some twisties, shall we? Basically keep it in second gear everywhere. It's amazing. You got so much rev range. Oh, I love this corner coming up. You know, not to sound like a dweeb, but I can feel that counter rotating crank. It feels different than the 210. It does. God, it just darts over from side to side so beautifully. Whew, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, you can just be in second gear basically everywhere with this thing and enjoy the twisties with it. Cannot wait to get it on track. That was like 10% of what it can do. It's absolutely wild, dude. But see, we're back here. We're in third gear at like 3,500 RPMs or so, and we're relaxing again. It has this dual nature. We're once again just, you know, we're just in traffic, we're hanging out, and that's a really, really nice quality for a bike like this to have. The 210 felt insane everywhere. It just felt angry. It felt like it wanted to go, 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 go. And sometimes you're just trying to get back to, you know, home or work or whatever it is you're going. And that makes this thing a really usable, everyday kind of super naked bike. I'm really excited to see how it's going to do on track. I think it's going to perform very, very, very well. I'd love to obviously get all the settings dialed in. There's a lot going on with this bike that I can't do on this one video. But there is a whole lot to dive into as well. Obviously, you got the Olin steering damper as well. That's cool. That adds something, makes you look kind of more flashy when you look down. Obviously controls the tank slappy kind of nature of bikes like this. Now, one thing that's interesting, and this may be the electronics controlling it, but this bike doesn't feel very wheelie happy. It will do wheelies, no doubt. If you ask it and prod it to, it will lift that front wheel, no problem. But it is different than an MT-10, for example, or an MT-09 that feels just really peppy and effervescent and willing. And I'd wager to bet that that's to do with the fact that it's a little bit longer than those bikes, and it is also a little bit less leery, you know, kind of with the engine. The engine kind of builds its power as opposed to just smacking it with torque like the MT bikes do. Such a refined package, man. Like the seat of the pants feel here is fantastic. The way that you can just be on this machine and just cruise around town and you just feel like $1,000,000. These flagship bikes are fantastic. Let's talk about the price a little bit, okay? So it's $25,000-ish MSRP. That is a healthy amount more than the 210 V4. It's almost $10,000 more than an MT-10, excuse me. It's a lot of money for the bike, and you're paying for the brand. You're paying for that tiny little white sticker that says Ducati on the side of the tank. That's what you're paying for. And, you know, a lot of people might think that that's not worth it. But me personally, with how exotic this motorcycle sounds, the refinement of what it feels, I mean, it's kind of like how Ferris Bueller said, if you have the means, I highly recommend it. Jesus! Let's go, baby! It does this really cool thing at about 9,000 RPM. It makes this weird, like, snarly little, like, changeover sound. Man, this thing's cool. So yeah, the sound on this motor is worth the price of entry, in my opinion. There's nothing really quite like this V4. There's other V4s that are fantastic. The Aprilia V4 is amazing. The MT-10, while not a V4, is still very, very good and exotic sounding. You know, this is a bike that I think it's worth the 25 grand. The riding experience here is stellar. It's just stellar. I don't think it's a kind of a 10 out of 10 motorcycle, a 100% on its grade report, but man, it's got to be a 95. There's only a few things I don't like about it. The throttle response, iffy, but I bet you there's a setting where I can dial it out. Basically everything on this motorcycle is fine-tunable. You can change the pegs, you can change the levers, you can change everything to suit your exact riding style, and that to me is the sign of a flexible flagship hyper naked. It's a motorcycle that you should be able to adjust it and tailor it to everything you want in the bike, and it should still perform very, very well in those conditions. Let's see if we can change the mode on the fly. I bet you we can't. We probably have to be stopped or completely off throttle, and there's a lot of traffic going on here, so I'll just wait until we're up there. We've been in sport mode this entire time. I find it to be the most agreeable mode for this motorcycle. I think that sport mode is definitely the one you want to be in. You don't need to be in race mode on the street. And street mode on this bike, while it is very good, I was in it for about 45 minutes this morning and then switched it to sport mode and never really looked back. Didn't really need to. You can see here, cruising like 30 miles per hour, third gear. I think does a great job, man. Does a really good job. Let's talk highway manners. And kind of comfortableness and kind of daily factors and those sort of things. So first off, the seat on this bike is super comfortable. Really comfortable seat to do a lot of miles in. I've been on this bike for about 2 hours this morning. I got lost earlier when I was further down south. I had to look up my GPS and stuff. I've been sat in the saddle of this bike for about 2 hours. My bum is not complaining at all. The lack of wind protection obviously is something that you're going to have to consider if you're doing a lot of highway miles. Me personally, I don't really think it's a big deal. I think a lot of people overestimate the necessity of wind protection, especially for an around-the-town, daily kind of motorcycle. I think if you're crushing huge distances and huge miles, yes, get a windscreen, get a gold wing, whatever you need to do. But this motorcycle, for my money and my opinion, I don't really miss a windscreen at all. I actually prefer it without a windscreen because the wind is very neutral on my chest and on my head. It's very predictable what the wind is doing. I don't really miss a windscreen on this thing. It feels fine. Cruising at about 70 miles per hour or so. Click it up into 6th. It's doing well. We're kind of going with the flow of traffic here. This is the highway. We can't, you know, we can only go as fast as traffic allows us. And I'm liking what I'm seeing. This is a really, really nice place to sit for a highway commute if you needed to do it. And I'm just, again, really impressed with the flexibility of this motorcycle. I was just carving up a twisty road back there like this bike is a freaking MotoGP bike. The way it sounds is tremendous. Red line's at 14,500 RPM. And yet here I am, comfortable, upright, cruising in traffic, 5th gear. I don't feel any type of way about the machine that I'm on. It doesn't feel intimidating. It doesn't feel, you know, outrageous or powerful. It will if I twist the throttle, but I mean, you know, you get on the gas and it's really nice. It's a really, really nice place to be and to sit for a long period of time. I really like it. I really, really like this motorcycle. I still think it's my favorite pick for a naked bike ever. I've never ridden a bike that is this composed, this refined, this pulled together, and this flexible in what it can do, man. This could be a daily bike for somebody. It's a bit outrageous, but it's much more capable as a daily than something like an R1 or a Fireblade or whatever the hell else. Like, you could genuinely ride this thing around all day, every day, and not feel any type of way about it, which is so cool. I love the character and the nature of the power. Super exotic sound. Really, really awesome electronic suite that I cannot wait to test at the track. This is a really, really complete package. And what's cool about it is a lot of the features here are derived from MotoGP, Ducati's MotoGP program. In case you guys aren't familiar, they've been at it since like 2004, I think. They've only won one world championship with Casey Stoner in 2007. But basically, over the years, I'd say the last 4 or 5 years or so, Ducati's realized that a bike that is easy to ride makes a rider go faster. You know, you can throw horsepower and handling and crazy features on a bike all you want, but at the end of the day, the rider is in control of the machine, and if you make it handle easier on them and more flattering and better and easier, nicer to ride, that's going to make them more comfortable and make them want to push and actually go faster, which is why you've started to see a lot more success with Ducati bikes on the grid. And that technology, you know, the backwards rotating crankshaft, the crazy firing order, all the kind of tech that you see from the GP bikes trickle down into this machine in a really, really cool way. Yeah, this bike is really special. And yes, it is $25,000, but hey, at least if you spend 25 grand, you get almost a 10 out of 10 motorcycle. I basically have no complaints about this thing other than a little bit of throttle feel at low revs and kind of in slow speeds. The lock to lock isn't fantastic. Other than that, it's basically perfect. It makes power everywhere. It makes a ton of power in the top end. I can't see how you'd go wrong with this thing if you wanted to get one. And I can't believe we're giving it away, but we are, you know. This is going to be another one of those where I have to really, someone's going to have to fight me for the keys on this thing, because I do not want to give this thing up. This is a great motorcycle. The sound it makes is just phenomenal. Low down in the rev range. It's growing on me so much too. I jumped on it and I was like, wow, this is a great bike. I've been on it for about 2 hours now, and I'm like, wow, 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 this is a great bike. I can't believe how great it is, you know? All right, we finally hit a stoplight. Never thought I'd say that, but click it into neutral here, which, oh, I was just gonna show you guys how easy it is. It is easy to get it into neutral compared to other Ducatis I've ridden. So we have race, sport, and street mode. Let's go ahead and enter in street mode. So now we're in street mode, the most chilled out version of this motorcycle. And I gotta say, it's kind of crazy. I was riding in street mode earlier. It feels like a middleweight naked bike. It's really cool how you can dial out the power and just enjoy it, and it's really easy going, and it's not too crazy. But let me show you guys something really quick while we're sitting here at the light. Go into the settings menu. So we have a lot of other settings here. Tire calibration, turn indicators. I don't know what settings turn indicators do. If we look at riding mode, we can tune each riding mode. If you go into street, you can change all the different settings. That's engine braking, the quick shifter up and down, the Ducati engine something, dynamic suspension. I'm a dummy, I'm sorry guys. You can change it to fixed suspension if you want. It's currently set to dynamic. You can change the quick shifter, the engine braking, all kinds of stuff. There's a lot here. These are all the different traction control. That's Ducati traction control, wheelie control, stability control. You can dial all those in and out. It's really crazy. I haven't found the sub menu that changes the suspension stuff. It's got to be in here somewhere. I'm sure in stability control somewhere or another it's in there. The one thing about this bike, I can't believe that Ducati did this. It makes me so angry. There's not a fuel gauge on this machine. I'm paying $25,000. I don't get a fuel gauge? Come on, Ducati. You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. I think it comes with a fuel light, but not a gauge. Come on. 25 grand. I don't get a fuel gauge. It was the same with the R1. No fuel gauge. I was like, guys, I get it. Like a fuel light is more like, you know, subtle and small and blah, blah, blah. But, oh my God, I want a fuel gauge. A freaking SV650 from like 2002 is a fuel gauge. Or does it? Maybe Josh can correct me on that if he watches the video. Alright folks, we're in the section of our test where we're going to do a little bit of a suspension check. There's a really bumpy section of road up here. I want to see how this dynamic suspension deals with those bumps. We're sitting behind this diesel truck. We're going to keep it in first gear because this truck isn't going to go much faster. And, alright, it's pretty bumpy. It starts to mellow it out. That's crazy. It already adjusted itself and it started making it smoother. Man, that's so cool. This is a very bumpy section of road that I take all of the giveaway bikes on when I test out that loop. That little section back there is really kind of rough and undulating, and damn, this thing does a great job of controlling those bumps. Because it's top shelf Ohlins. Why wouldn't it, baby? Alright guys, we're getting close to wrapping up our video. We got another section of Twisty Road here because I think we need to just check if this bike can handle City Park Road here in Austin. Just, you know, for scientific purposes, not for my own edification or anything like that. Yeah, street mode's really chilled out. I like it. If you're just kind of cruising around town and you're not looking to really kind of rail the corners and stuff, it's really nice. What's cool about it is the quick shifter settings change a little bit. The quick shifter becomes, I don't know how to explain it, but the downshifts are just a little different. But let's peel off here. Let's wrap up our thoughts on the Ducati and call it a day, shall we? Woo! Now that right there, folks, is a spicy little meatball. What a machine. I am so thrilled we have this motorcycle for a giveaway bike. I am so thrilled to be having the chance to give it away to some of you. I just want to shout it out again. Head up to shop.yamini.co, use the code V4S, get 4X entries, do all that good stuff, get entered to win. You're not going to want to miss it. But my final thoughts on this bike, it's a masterpiece. This is a 9.5 out of 10 motorcycle for me. It's impossibly good. It's impossibly refined and taken care of, and yet at the same time it's this snarling animalistic thing that just wants to destroy you. Just beautifully constructed motorcycle, beautiful to look at too. I know some people think the looks are a little bit polarizing, but I feel like this motorcycle looks the absolute business. It just looks sophisticated, sexy, Italian. It's got all the right notes to it. Fantastic motor, fantastic riding experience. Absolutely could be a daily rider in my opinion. You could totally take this thing up and down to work or the coffee shops, whatever you're trying to do. It's happy to do it. That's the thing. It's happy to cruise around. It's not angry. It's not fighting you. It's not trying to go every 3 seconds. That's a lovely thing, you know? It's a lovely thing. So, guys, I'm head over heels with this Ducati V4S. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments if you haven't already. And, yeah, get in there to win it. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.